Welcome to Allies or Enemies. This time we are looking at Libertalia, Winds of Galecrest. Our copy was supplied by the publisher, but the thoughts are all our own. Originally designed by Paolo Mori, with a new edition by Stonemaier Games, Winds of Galecrest is an updated version of the 2012 classic card-based pirate game of hiring ship hands and sailing for booty. The new version is fairly faithful to the original, but with some new art, some additions to the two-player version, a new solo mode, some tweaks on a few cards, a bunch of new cards, and a whole new side of the board, as well as some upgraded components. We'll look at all of that in a bit more depth in a minute, but first, let's look at how it plays.
Libertalia Winds of Galecrest is played over 3 voyages. At the start of each voyage, one player randomly draws 6 cards from a deck of 40, and everyone else finds those same 6 cards so that everyone starts with the same hand. Each turn, players choose 1 card, which will be placed in order of ascending value. Then, all day powers are resolved from left to right, and all dusk powers are resolved from right to left, while players also choose 1 loot token from amongst the day's treasure. Some of these are good, some of these are bad, some of these are mischievous. All pirates that survive dusk come back to their players' ships, and finally, all night powers are resolved. At the end of each voyage, players add up all the treasures they got from doubloons, loot tokens, and end-of-round powers, and record the total on their treasure chest. Then everything's discarded and the next voyage begins. The end of 3 voyages, the greatest pirate is named.
The game plays from 1 to 6 players, with the 3 to 6 player versions all working like what you just heard. Amongst these counts, there is a bit of difference in that more players make for a more chaotic island and more competition for loot. But since all turns are simultaneous, the game time won't change much. There will just be more piratey hijinks and less chance you will guess what your opponents will do. At 2 players, however, things do change a bit. First of all, you add the permanent midshipman tile with a rank of 20.5. If any player is to the left of the midshipman, their opponent gets to discard a loot, which means you'll get last choice, which is rarely good. The tweaks to the cards also make it so that all the cards work pretty well for 2 players. But the biggest change is the metagame. Because you have the same few cards to choose from, it becomes a real cat and mouse game, and it feels so rewarding when you can outwit your opponent. Also, a pleasant surprise is the solo mode, which works off of an Atoma-specific deck of slightly tweaked cards, and a system of choosing actions based on available loot. It is quick to learn, easy to play, and does a weirdly good job of replicating an opponent.
Stonemaier Games is known for their components, and this is no exception. The loot tokens are the real standout. They have a terrific tactile feel and are satisfying to clack around in the bag. The treasure chest score dials are also a great touch, though there could maybe be a few more doubloons, especially for 6-player games. And the cardboard coins are passable, but just okay. But the biggest change is in the artwork. Winds of Galecrest replaces the gritty original art with a more cartoony style that looks a bit like Treasure Planet with animals. We like it, but we have heard that some miss the more adult style. The new game board also reflects the brighter, cleaner theme and adds a bunch of helpful reminders for gameplay and a new reputation track, which is an especially helpful tweak. It maybe feels a little bit less dark and piratey, but we're fine with the trade-off for a cleaner, brighter, more functional game.
The biggest point of variability is in the cards. There are 40 cards in the decks, but you will only ever use 18 in any given game, which makes a huge difference to gameplay. We've had games with only low cards, or no night powers, or oodles of interactive cards, and all of these games have felt totally different. And it's not just which 18 cards, but also when they come out, because all 40 cards feel very different and can be more or less valuable at different times in your voyage. There are also two sides to the board, with the calm side offering a slightly more predictable style of play, and the stormy side having not exactly more take that, but certainly more perilous and sometimes swingy play. And if you want to mix and match, there are also tiles that let you do that. And on top of that, there are the loot tokens, which can add some real wrenches, sabers, and hooks to the works.
We came into playing the new version of Libertalia with a bit of trepidation. We weren't huge fans of the original, and we were worried that this one still wouldn't work that well at 2 and that it would have too much take that, so we've been surprised by how much we've enjoyed this new version. It's still highly interactive, and at its base it is about outwitting your opponent, but other than the odd saber, the attacks rarely feel personal. Also, the tweaks to the 2-player mode work way better than we had anticipated. You're probably going to prefer the chaos of 4 or 5 players, but this is still a solid game when it is just the pair of you. And it does a really good job of making things clear for newer players. That said, it's probably a smidge too much for people who are brand new to hobby games, but if you want a light-ish, quick-moving game with meaningful choices, and you're okay with a little bit of good-natured plundering and being plundered, and you like clever card games, this could be a pretty good fit. And that is it. Have you played the new version of Libertalia? What'd you think? And what other pirate games do you enjoy? And if you haven't yet, please do like and subscribe. And hopefully, we'll see you all next time for another game.